It must be the studio editing because of the guitars they use. It's their amp model, it's their string gauge or pick. These are probably things you've told yourself as to why your rock playing or metal playing doesn't sound heavy like on the songs you like or the albums you listen to. And while there are little snippets of truth to all those things, the chances are it's your technique holding you back. But that's okay, because today I'm going to show you the things you need to fix in order to get your metal playing or rock playing to sound heavy. So the first thing we're going to go over is your palm muting, because that's what we're going to use as our reference to implement most of the techniques I'm going to talk about today. So in true metal fashion, we're just going to practice this palm muting the low E string to begin with. Now where you palm mute makes a huge difference. If I have my hand rested back here on the very edge, it rings out like a normal open note. As I go further across, it deadens the string more and more. If I go too far, it kills the note completely. We don't want that. So you want to experiment with where on your guitar sounds best. And you can do it in different places to get a different kind of sound. So if I want something a bit more resonant, I'm further back. If I want something a bit more closed off, I go further across, but I don't go too far. Otherwise it just sounds terrible, so don't do that. Now this next thing I was debating putting first, because if you don't do this properly, then the first step is going to sound awful. And that is, you need to be holding your guitar pick firmly. Not tight, firm. Very different. Let me show you what I mean. So here I've got a pad of sticky notes. Now if I hold this pad of sticky notes at the very end here and I bend it, it flexes very easily, right? Doesn't matter if I hold that really tight, it's still just going to bend like this, not offering much resistance. But if I hold it at the very other end, so over here, and I try flex it, it's hardly going to move at all. And I'm not even holding it tight, I'm actually holding it quite loosely. So it's the exact same with your guitar pick. If I hold my pick at the very top like this and I play, the pick's just going to move like this. Okay, if I hold it tight even, it's still going to move. So what I need to make sure I'm doing is only showing the very tip of the guitar pick, and that way I can hold it loosely so I'm not wearing my arm out, but I'm not getting any flex within the pick, so I can play aggressively. So now we need to apply that to our palm muted sound. So if I just palm mute this low E string, but I'm not holding my pick right, it doesn't sound very powerful, right? Sounds quite soft. And oftentimes people will compensate for that soft sound by turning up the gain or distortion on their amp, which just makes their tone super muddy. So what you need to be able to do is have that firm pick grip we talked about, where we're only showing the very end like that, and then we can really dig in. And as you play further across, it's still going to have some clarity versus playing softly. If I go across, sounds really weak. If I dig in, playing firmly, it will sound more like the sound you're going for. So making sure you're holding your pick firmly, not tightly, is super important to getting your metal riffs to sound good. Now the next thing is being able to control your string noise with your left hand. Because of the way an electric guitar works, and especially with the distorted sound, it compresses the sound so that noises that would normally be quiet and your loud sounds become more even. What that means is any quiet sounds that you might not notice on the cleaner tone of unwanted background string noise, it's now going to be competing for sonic space within your guitar pickup or your guitar sound and taking away from the notes you're actually trying to play and get across. So what we do is, if we go back to our palm muted low E string, when I'm playing that palm muted low E, I'm blocking all these strings, so the A, D, G, B and high E, with my left hand. That way all you're hearing is that note that I'm chugging on, I'm palm muting. If I have those fingers on my left hand off, and especially if I had been playing chords or something before, so you get all this background ringing, right? Because of the way a guitar works, even if you're not playing the strings, the whole body and guitar is resonating or vibrating slightly when you're playing notes, so it can cause the other strings to ring, and that's just going to kill your tone. So practice palm muting on that low E string and blocking all those other strings with your other fingers. And if you want a more in-depth video on string muting, the last video I posted, which no one seems to be watching, so go give it a view, I talk all about that, and it's more in the context of lead guitar playing, but it absolutely still applies to your metal rhythm playing. Now the last thing, which makes a huge difference, is creating the contrast between your open notes and your palm muted notes. What makes metal sound heavy is these really closed off palm muted sounds and then these big open notes in between. And the contrast between them is what makes it sound so aggressive. I'll show you what I mean. So I'm going to do a makeshift version of a very famous Metallica song, which we will not name because I don't want to get copyrighted and I don't want this video to get blocked. So you'll get the idea. So if I play this badly and I don't have any contrast between my open notes and my palm muted notes, it would sound something like this. I probably won't remember that to play it again, but you get the idea. It sounded very weak. There wasn't contrast between palm muted notes, open strings, and all that. Now if I add in contrast, it would sound something like this. You'll notice there's a bit more going on with that, a bit more dynamic. Now, what am I doing there? But I was making sure at the beginning to get a heavy palm mute, then play the open strings without any unwanted string noise, so I'm not going, right, I'm going. Then when I do these notes, I think that's what I played. I'm playing with my pick held very firm, and I'm making sure I'm blocking all the unwanted strings, so I'm not going and letting other notes ring over each other, or holding the pick very softly. Right, versus big difference. Then on that last power chord thing I did, I'm really digging in. Right, I'm palm muting pretty far across on that and really digging in with my pick to get that heavy chug sound, versus if I palm muted further back and held my pick lightly, versus right, completely different sound. So to practice that, what I suggest you do is just play 2 notes on the A string, or 2 power chords if you want, and then do 2 palm mutes, and then just alternate between the 2, and get as much separation as you can between your A string notes and your palm mutes. So it looks something like this. Right, so my open notes are very open and bright, then when I palm mute, I'm blocking with this hand, I'm not going like this. And getting all this background string noise. I'm also holding the pick very firmly. Right, not soft like this. Now the other thing you're going to have to get used to is getting your hand in the right position to palm mute after lifting it off for the open strings. Right, so I played 2 notes with my hand up in the air, then I rest it to palm mute. Right, so getting used to that sensation. So those are 4 things that if you implement into your guitar playing, your metal playing and rock playing especially, it's going to sound a whole lot heavier and it's going to start actually sounding like the songs you're playing, which is always good. So hopefully that was helpful, and thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.